In the second part of this lecture, I will introduce a few concepts of recent research in the fields of sociology and international relations that have provided very helpful intellectual tools to scholars who are interested in studying governance and global governance, and who actually will be helpful for you to conduct some of the assessments that I am asking you for in order to pass this course. Remember that you will have to analyze how a big corporation is influencing global governance somehow, because it is making a difference in the fields of public health or education. So we already claim that governance has to do with interaction. It's not just a top-down command. There is some change of actions and reactions and between different actors who share something, who are not isolated in a void, but actually are engaging in relationships in a given specific terrain. Recent research in sociology for the last decades, sociology has actually analyzed social action in such a way that has become particularly relevant for many fields of research as international relations, among others. The key point is Anthony Giddens' theories of structuration. Structuration means structure in movement. The point is how agency becomes a structure, how structure influences agency. The point is that agency intermingles with the structure. Current structures are the outcome of previous actions. By agency, we mean the human capability to influence the world, to do something that provokes consequences. And via structure, we mean distributions of resources, we mean social norms, we mean states of affairs that do not depend directly on the will of those actors at stake, of those who are actually participating in a given interaction. Margaret Archer, sociologist Margaret Archer, has made very relevant claim that is really helpful to understand how actors or agents really make a difference in any given set and any given field of governance. In her view, human beings are not intrinsically agents, but they become effective as agents. They become agentially effective by deploying a sort of properties that they can develop. Some of these properties are personal, like consciousness. We can become aware of the world we are, where we are. Some are structural, such as a status that depends on our position in a social stratification. And some are cultural, such as using some ideas or some stories, or to tell some stories that actually influence other people. By using these properties, these instruments which are not alien to us, but are properties of human beings, we can become agents. But we are not only individuals. Agents don't mean only individuals. It can be states. States are agents in many aspects. They make the difference in reality in many ways. We mean social movements. Sociology has been well interested in this sociology and political science have been well interested in this kind of very innovative but very fluid type of agents as social movements are. But we mean also international organizations. By IO, I mean international organization. Well, all of these actors and other ones are what maybe defined as corporate agents. They are not single individuals, but groups of individuals who coordinate the action somehow, and they make a difference in this way. Additionally, sociology has claimed that agency takes place in social fields. It's not operating in the void. And the social fields actually these social fields are actually a facet of the social structure because they also condition agency. We cannot do everything, everywhere, anywhere, regardless of where we are. We have to be aware of the situation and the conditions of that situation. Jane Jensen and many other experts in politics and international relations have developed a growing interest in Pierre Bourdieu's concept of social field because they are claiming that international relations also consists of making a given set of social fields. And particularly, they claim that global governance takes place in a set of social fields. So when we claim that we have global governance, we are interested in what international organizations do, what the European Union do, what member states of the European Union do, of what the regional and local governments within these member states do, but also business, social movements, political parties, unions, networks of civil society representatives, and many other kinds of agents. All these agents shape a social field or shape different but connected social fields. And they change the field when they shift from one field to another one, when they shift from local politics to the international arena. They have to be aware that they are aware that they are, and they are more effective if they are aware that they are actually operating in a very different context. In a nutshell, we can claim that global governance is not a fixed reality nowadays. It's not. We cannot claim that we have a world government. We have the United Nations, but it's obvious. I think that it's obvious to all of you that the United Nations is not governing the world. We can discuss that afterwards. Let me just say it in a very cursory way. But the making of the United Nations was a very significant social change that took place in the 20th century. There were nothing similar before, and people thought, in the first half of the 20th century, many people thought that regardless of how difficult it is to have a kind of worldwide international organizations, it's interesting to have them. We should build this kind of organizations. So, and very briefly, we can claim that between the 1880s and the 1970s, the key geographical force was the centripetal scaling of modern nation states. The centripetal forces actually come to the center, but they were not the only ones at stake. As you see, these states were coordinated or were somehow coordinated in organizations such as the United Nations, which was created, or whose president, the League of Nations, was created in 1919, and specifically the United Nations was created in 1948. However, after the 70s, set of centrifugal forces go out of the center. Global and normative orders have proliferated. We will revisit this list. We will revisit this list of that's something that happens in present in face-to-face lectures, and of course it has to happen in online lectures. Teachers make mistakes. Okay, here we are again in the slide. With the slide, you have a list of the centrifugal normative orders. So now we can say that we don't have a clear set of aspects of the world government, but we have an array of normative orders that are global in many ways and actually provoke global effects. Financialization is a very important one, as the 2008 Great Recession clearly showed. But we also have open and intrusive big data, as the WikiLeaks scandal revealed in 2010. But we also have the making of a human rights legal standard, global standard, that actually is not impinging on everything, but is making a difference too. Sociologist Saskia Sassin has systematically developed this argument in her book on authority, rights, and territory. However, we can add other ones that she's not discussing in that book, but we will also discuss in this course, like global value chains, policy agendas, and of course, climate action and environmental coordination regarding environmental issues. Before I move on to some general questions we will discuss drawing on the compulsory reading list of this first theme, let me briefly mention a couple of very interesting or very important social changes that also shape global governance. Although we will not discuss them with so detailed as I did with Saskia Sassin's work, I think it's important that you keep them in mind and that you are aware that they are also influential when you go on with your readings and your assignments in this course. The first one is that globalization weakens the conditions of interstate social pacts. In the mid-20th century, almost all Western European countries, North American countries, Australia, New Zealand, and Japan actually overcame a series of conflicts by means of wide-ranging agreements between governments, unions, or the unemployers associations. That was the beginning of the welfare state in many countries, or the expansion, a significant expansion of the welfare state in other countries. And actually, in some countries like Southern European countries or Latin American countries, it was actually the milestone of democratic transition since the 1970s until the 1990s. These were internal agreements within states. However, it's important to remind you that globalization weakens the conditions of these social pacts. A sociologist, the historical sociologist Charles Tilly, brilliantly argued in several books on the state system or democratization some years ago. Additionally, we have to be aware that global governance is not alien to our cultural understanding of what's going on. And we have to be aware that our cultures are diverse. We are living in the world. There are many, many, many different cultures, but most of them have established this division of time between past, present, and future, which is one of the keys of the cornerstones of what sociology has come to define as modernity. Modernity is a kind of cultural condition that actually thinks of present as an outcome of the past, and is interested in the present in order to plan for future somehow. Sociologist Gerard Ranti, drawing on the work of many other sociologists, such as Samuel Eisenstadt, claims that there are multiple modernities which are the outcome of multiple cultural arrangements or civilizations, they have construed distribution in very diverse ways. And of course, when we think of global governance and how we think of dealing with collective affairs, that's very important because we're interested in collective affairs now in order to plan for the future. So it's an interesting topic too. So finally, let me very briefly mention a couple of questions that we will discuss when reading the compulsory articles that I propose for this first theme. I am not joking, I mean I propose because I propose 4, I have to choose 2. And that allows me to introduce some issues from international relations and sociology. So you can choose the international relations or the sociology stuff. If you are more interested in that, you can look for the other one, for the other field, or you can mix them. Anyway, I think that we will focus. It's important that you are aware that you will focus in these two questions. Who is the subject of democracy, and are global networks more powerful than states and classes? Economists and diplomats Book Jeremich and Jeffrey Sachs have argued that we can plan for the Sustainable Development Goals in a straightforward way if we basically take statistical targets into account. So this is a explicit way of saying, here we are, we want to go there, and we have to track any movement in between. Art Schulte is an IR scholar who has argued that the subject of democracy is not an easy, is not a single kind. It is not a single kind of subjects of democracy. We have to be aware of different temporalities, different geographical scales, different standings of social change, different ways of conducting politics. In order to open an inclusive debate that takes everybody into account. And finally, on the other hand, sociologist Manuel Castells argued about 20 years ago that the main difference that we are facing nowadays is the emergence of networks, which are actually more influential than other traditional powerful social agents such as states or social classes. However, sociologist Immanuel Wallerstein argued in the opposite way, claiming that no, actually networks are not so powerful, they are subordinated to the action of states and classes. You have the readings, I hope you enjoy them, and we will discuss them thoroughly in the following sessions. So thank you very much for your interest, and that's all.